As Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden travels to crucial battlefield state of Florida on Monday, President Trump is hospitalized at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center after being diagnosed with COVID-19. After months of mocking the former vice president for his light in-person campaign timeline amid the coronavirus pandemic and ridiculing him for hiding in his basement at his Delaware home, it now is Trump who is sidelined and forced to postpone events, with a month before Election Day on November 3, and with millions of Americans already voting by mail or advance voting at polling stations. And with the passing of time, and the president trailing behind Biden in the latest public opinion polls in many of the key battlefield states that will decide who will win the White House, the presidential spotlight has again drastically come back. Exchange. Just 2 weeks after the death of pioneering Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg rocked the race for the White House, giving the president an opportunity to rally Republicans by moving to swiftly uphold conservative justice to succeed with Ginsburg leaning liberal in the High Court, the campaign's focus was once again upset. The president's confirmation early Friday morning that he and First Lady Melania Trump had tested positive for COVID-19 instantly put the White House race's focus back on the coronavirus and the Trump administration's efforts to fight against the pandemic. It got even worse a few hours later when Trump was admitted to Walter Reed's home. This is not good news for the president, as the focus is now going to be on COVID-19, and when the focus is on COVID-19, Biden has a 10, 11, 12-point advantage, veteran Republican pollster and communications consultant said Frank Luntz told Fox News The Daily Briefing with Dana Perino. Luntz stressed that the economy is Donald Trump's strength, and the fact that he cannot get out now is going to be a challenge for the campaign. Chris Wallace, presenter of Fox News Sunday, agreed that the coronavirus and the president's handling of it are high on the agenda. Wallace, who moderated Tuesday's first presidential debate between Biden and Trump, emphasized the American newsroom that the pandemic is becoming the most important issue. The general feeling on the part of some is that the president was not careful enough and Biden was too careful. This is going to be a problem in the future. The pandemic swept across the country in February and March. 2 weeks ago, the country took another grim milestone, with more than 200,000 COVID-19 related deaths, with more than 7 million confirmed infections across the country. Over the past 7 months, Biden has repeatedly criticized the president, accusing Trump of first downplaying the severity of the outbreak, then botching the federal government's response. Trump and his campaign have repeatedly rebuffed such criticism, citing, among other things, the administration's early efforts to restrict air travel with China, the source country of the pandemic. Hours before the president's hospitalization, Biden was on the campaign trail, speaking in key Michigan state. He reduced his criticism of Trump, and his campaign later pointed out that they were pulling all the negative ads. But the former vice president stressed that Trump's coronavirus diagnosis is an invigorating reminder to all of us that we need to take this virus seriously. It does not automatically disappear. The news reminds us that as a nation we must do better to deal with this pandemic. Biden's comments came 3 days after Trump, who avoided wearing a mask in public until July and continues to resist any forceful American urging to wear masks, again mocked Biden for wearing a mask, claiming in Tuesday's debate that "I'm not doing it. I don't wear a mask like him. Every time you see him he has a mask on. He could speak 200 yards away and he shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen." Biden, who called for mask warrants across the country, on Friday resumed his argument by calling for nationwide warrants. And he urged Americans to be patriotic. "It's not about being a tough guy. It's about doing your part. Wearing a mask will not only protect you, but it will also protect those around you. Your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your husband, your wife, your neighbor, your colleague. Don't do it just for yourself." The president's condition now makes it extremely difficult for him to argue, which he has repeatedly argued in recent weeks, that we are turning the corner in the battle against the epidemic and that it is time to reopen it. Economy. Molathe, founding executive director of Georgetown University's Institute for Politics and Public Service and Fox News contributor, said the news complicated matters for the Trump campaign, which, he noted, tried to focus on the debate on everything but COVID, and when they do talk about it they have tried to argue that the response has been effective. It will be much more difficult for them to do either of these things now. Biden holds a solid lead over Trump when it comes to coronavirus polls. Fox News' most recent national poll showed that with a 52% to 44% margin, voters trusted the former vice president more than the president to better handle the crisis. Lathe, spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign, who later served as communications director for the Democratic National Committee, said, "The question is whether or not this serves as a wake-up call for those who don't take COVID seriously. It will be much more difficult for people to minimize it now and ensure that COVID continues to be the number one problem on everyone's mind. If this disease can make its way into the Oval Office, it's further proof that anyone can contract it, raising the stakes in the debate over the government's response." For the president and his campaign, the bad news did not end with his diagnosis of coronavirus. Two key players in the combined forces of the president's re-election team and the Republican National Committee, RNC, have also tested positive for COVID-19, Trump's campaign manager Bill Stepien and RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. Trump's debate coach and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie on Saturday was also hospitalized after testing positive. And the two remaining presidential debates, scheduled for October 15 and 22, are now very much on hold, potentially depriving Trump of his last remaining opportunities to move the needle in the White House race. For now, with Trump sidelined, his campaign will rely on Vice President Mike Pence and other surrogates to try to pick up the pace. But Luntz sees a possible silver lining in the president's hospitalization. "I think he should make a statement to the public like UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson did after his illness, and it's a chance for him to say, here's what we're going to do, here's what we've done, and here's what we're going to do over the next few days, weeks, and months, to empathize." Luntz noted that the president is basically 6.5 to 7 points behind with only 30 days to go, so I think he needs to use that as an opportunity to reframe, reshape, and communicate to the public what he's done so effectively 4 years since.